as we enter week 8. And already we know who the two teams that are going to be playing in the USFL Conference Championship are going to be. And it's kind of looking accordingly, right? But we'll go from number 8 all the way up to number 1. Somebody got to be 8. So this week, that is the Memphis Showboats, who don't know if they're coming or going, quite frankly. It's getting rough for Memphis out here. It's not as if they are sinking. It's as if they are sunk. The Showboats scored a season high 23 points, but also gave up 47 points. 47 points to the Arlington Renegades and a 47-23 loss to the only winless team at that point in the entire league. Neither quarterback Troy Williams nor Case Cookis look like the guy. And you're talking about a defense that is progressively getting worse. Like, I'm looking at this, and the Memphis Showboats have given up at least 32 points in each of their last 5 games. That's just not going to get it done. They're already looking toward next season and what they can do, but I'm sure John DeFilippo is going to be looking at Carnell Lake and going, maybe I need to get another defensive coordinator. Next on the list, I have the Arlington Renegades, who finally got into the win column. There are no more winless teams in the UFL, and they did it in devastating fashion. Not only did they score their season high, they scored the most points in a single game by any team all year with 47 against the Showboats. Luis Perez, who looked awesome, right, had 27 to 32 for 296 with 3 TDs. And then Davion Smith added 101 yards on the ground. I'm going to talk with Luis a little bit later in the show, ask him how they were able to get up off the schneid and what particularly went well for them in the second and third quarters that led to them being able to finish this game, because it's not as if the offense has not shown up all year for them. Next on the list, I got the Houston Roughnecks, who are 1-6, but couldn't take advantage of what was an outstanding defensive performance against the Brahmas. They held the Brahmas to 3 out of 4 red zone stops and still gave up an L in a game it felt like they could win. I don't know that quarterback has been a great source of pride for them, going from Reed Sennett to Jared Guantano to Reed Sennett. And then Mark Thompson just hadn't been the boon in the backfield for them that I thought he might be. They are also looking toward next year, as again, they play in the USFL Conference with the Memphis Showboats, and we already know 2 of those teams are playing in the conference championship, and it ain't them. Next on the list, I have the 5-2 San Antonio Brahmas. Quentin Dorbity did not look great for a second straight week, right? First half, he was 10-19 for 142, and then Kevin Hogan had to come in off the bench to really lead the Brahmas to a win that gets them much closer to securing one of those spots in the XFL conference game. They had a 12-0 scoring run in the fourth quarter to finish off the Houston Roughnecks 15-12. Next on the list, I got the DC Defenders. While the Panthers have played 4 different quarterbacks this year, the Defenders have really tied themselves to Jordan Ta'amu, which is great because when Jordan Ta'amu's on the field, they always feel like they got a shot. He went into concussion protocol at halftime, and then the rails really came off of Reggie Barlow's Defenders. They had to go from DeAndre Francois to Jalen McClendon, and neither one of those guys looked like the quarterback that Jordan Ta'amu is for them, and Jordan Ta'amu has not been the guy that he was last year for them when he won XFL Offensive Player of the Year. The Defenders gave up 3 sacks and 7 tackles for loss. Really lacked an identity. I thought they were coming into their own last week. They played the Birmingham Stallions closer than anybody else had played them all year, but it's looking more and more like they're going to have a hard time. Still, I got them here because I think if you play the Defenders and Brahmas again, Defenders got a shot to come out in front. All right. Next on that list, at number 3, I have the St. Louis Battlehawks. Now, the Battlehawks went down to Birmingham in A.J. McCarron's first trip back to play football in the state of Alabama, down the road from Tuscaloosa, not more than 200 miles away from Mobile, where he was a star in high school, and the Battlehawks took an L. Now, it was close for most of the way, right? And Skip Holtz had this one nailed. It's like, look, we're going to have to figure out a way to win this at home coming into the second half, because he thought it was going to come down to the last play of the game, and it basically did. What was interesting, though, is A.J. McCarron had an injured ankle, and that's particularly important for the Battlehawks because other than Jordan Ta'amu, he's basically been the only other guy who has been able to start every game for his team without injury, right? And they are a better football team with him behind center, with Bruce Gradkowski knowing what he's capable of, and Anthony Beck will trust that guy to the ends of the earth. But on a bum ankle, it's not as if he's that mobile, but it certainly does not help you set your feet and throw the ball through your hips, through your elbow, through your wrist to where it needs to be. And then he was playing against a guy that had seen a lot of him, right? John Chavis had been defensive coordinator for 4 games against AJ McCarron and lost 3 of them. This is his opportunity to get him. They held him to 19 of 32 for 161, just 5 yards per completion. That's what you're going to do, especially when you got Hakeem Butler, which they were able to basically take away for the entirety of the second half, they being the Birmingham Stallions. I also thought Andre Sismet showed himself to be great, and this is a league that has been really good for kickers, not just last year, but this year too. He made one from 60 going in at the half, was helped by a stupid penalty that put them in field goal range, and then nailed it from 60 yards out. I think the Battlehawks are going to be the 1 seed in the XFL conference, but this was really a game with Birmingham Stallions where they wanted to establish a mental edge. Going down to Protective and getting the win would have helped them tremendously if they got to meet again in the UFL Championship, which is taking place where the St. Louis Battlehawks call home the Dome at the America Center. Next on the list, I have the Michigan Panthers. Start with this. The Panthers are the only other team than Birmingham to beat the Battlehawks this year, and they did it in week 1. So they moved to 5-2 with the Brahmas win against the Roughnecks. They were able to clinch that second spot in the USFL conference. They'll play in a few weeks against the Birmingham Stallions for the right to play in the inaugural UFL championship. And they play 4 different quarterbacks. And frankly, I thought they'd get worse, but they haven't. They were able to swap out former Virginia standout Bryce Perkins and former Michigan State standout Brian Lewerke in multiple series, and it didn't seem to affect their rhythm on offense. This is also a franchise that started E.J. Perry, started Danny Etling. Danny Etling was out with an injury to his non-throwing hand, hence both of those guys, 3rd and 4th on the depth chart, getting opportunities to go make it happen. It's really easy to do, though, when you got a guy that's going to go over 100 yards rushing in the first half, and that's exactly what Matt Colburn was able to do for the Michigan Panthers. Wes Hill's been a battering ram for them. He had his 3rd rushing TD, 5th TD in 3 games as a running back there. I also thought, Jake Bates is continuing to be that guy for them. Like, he's the guy that beat the Battlehawks for them, making him from 64 yards out. He was good again in their win to clinch this playoff spot. And more importantly, he was good on grass. Like, that was the knock on him, if there was one, is, hey, this dude's pretty good in domes on turf. Is he good on grass when the wind is blowing? Yeah, he made one from 51 and looked good the rest of the way. Like, his kickoff duties are what got him into the UFL. But this thing where he's being able to bomb the ball from 60 yards plus and look like it's going to be good for 70, that's going to get him into the NFL. That is absolutely my first overall pick to make an NFL roster this 2024 when the NFL season starts, because that dude's just got a booming leg and he's accurate. And then number 1, Birmingham Stallions, 7-0, 14 straight wins, have not lost a football game in more than a calendar year. Their last loss was actually to the Houston Roughnecks, believe it or not, May 13th, 2023. With Adrian Martinez at quarterback, that's the best offense in the league. John Chavis's defense is no longer bend, don't break. They're hunting now because they can, with guys like Carlo Davis, guys like Taco Charlton coming off the edge, Kayaba Tizino, who's one of the better linebackers in the USFL legacy last year at Pittsburgh Maulers. He's on the inside now. They get outstanding play from their corners. I think Skip Holtz has got a program, got a franchise that we can all really look at and start to try to peel apart, because this is spring football's dynasty. If they win the next 4 games, that's what we're going to call them, right? They're going to be the first dynasty of spring football, and they will have earned that moniker. If you like what you've seen, consider subscribing to the #1 college football show on YouTube, the Fox Sports app, or wherever you get your podcast.